Hey, Rob Pincus here. I am going to talk to you wearing two different hats right now. Neither of them are the Avidity Arms hat. I'm going to talk to you wearing my Personal Defense Network Executive Director hat. I'm going to talk to you wearing my Executive Vice President of the Second Amendment Organization hat. First, we're going to talk about training, then we're going to talk about the politics. And what we're talking about, if you haven't already seen it, which you probably have by now, is the video of the range safety officer taking physical control of this guy who endangered himself and other people in the environment, particularly his buddy there in the striped shirt, while on a range. This video has gone super viral, right? 3 million views on this one particularly that's linked at Truth About Guns. I have tens of thousands of views on the video that I've posted in various places around the internet from yesterday. I posted it originally to deal with the training issue, and the training issue is very simple. Are you prepared, if you're an RSO or if you're an instructor, to physically control the shooters in your environment or under your care, under your responsibility, under your supervision? I think it's important. Maybe you haven't seen the video. Let's go take a look at the video first. Let it play out. You can see this guy is kind of taking a selfie, points the gun at his buddy, boom, in comes the range safety officer. And this is that physical control. He controlled the gun, he controlled the guy. He saw that the gun was loaded. He says, "Up, you guys are out of here," and he physically controls them and starts moving them out of the way. Now, if you haven't seen that before, that's the first time you've seen it, don't worry, we're going to go back, we're going to chop it up, we're going to look at some individual pieces of it. But are you thinking about the fact that the range safety officer may need to take physical control of you? Are you okay with that? Are you okay with the idea, if you have taken responsibility, if you're an instructor or if you are a range safety officer, that you may have to go hands-on? And in fact, that flies in contradiction to some of the instructor development policies and some of the range policies that I'm familiar with, where some entities or some organizations specifically say never touch a student, or maybe more specifically, never touch a student without permission. And probably in the fine print somewhere, all of the instructor groups are saying, unless you need to for safety. I don't think that's being stressed enough, and this video is a great way to talk about it. So let's do that. Let's take a look. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and we take a look at what's going on. This guy first, when he comes into the stall, right? He comes into all this gun's already there. Now, we don't know what else has happened. He clearly, to me, must not think that gun is loaded. If he thought that gun was loaded, he probably doesn't reach down and put his finger on the trigger. Probably doesn't do any of the things here in the video if he thinks it's loaded, and we're going to come back to that. Whether he thinks it's loaded or not, clearly he's being unsafe. At this point, he's picked the gun up. He's now going to do something with his phone, obviously trying to get ready to take a selfie. And right there, boom, there's another indication that he is treating this gun very complacently. He's not following the safety rules that would be in place. He's certainly not paying attention. The big picture rule, right? Pay attention to what you're doing with the gun. If the gun is in your control, stay focused on that. He's not focused on that. He's focused on his phone. Now, a lot of people have said blame the selfie. Don't blame the selfie. Don't blame the phone. At the end of the day, we're going to get to the politics of this. It's good that he's enjoying the firearm. It's good that he wants to share with people, hey, look at me, I'm using a firearm. It's not good that he's doing it recklessly unsafe. So here he is messing around, and his buddy is sort of watching this play out, right? His buddy isn't immediately saying, no, don't do it, which sort of indicates that he's really not sure what's going on here either. Now he takes his selfie. Okay, so he covered his hand, we got it, pointed the gun in an unsafe direction, got it, fingers on the trigger. This is about to be the crazy part. Clearly here, the gun is pointed at this guy's head. His finger is clearly on the trigger, and apparently he's still trying a selfie. So he thinks this is funny now. It's like, look at me, I'm pointing a gun at someone's head. There's an intellect issue here. There's a maturity issue here. There's a responsibility issue here. All of this is wrong, even if he thinks the gun is unloaded, which again, I believe he does. What you have back here, you can see this guy is wearing a gun and he's wearing rubber gloves. And that's pretty common practice for RSOs. There's a lot of contaminants, heavy metals floating around inside of the range. They wear rubber gloves. Some of them wear rubber booties. Lots of them wear a gun from a security standpoint. So this is the range safety officer here. Apparently his name is Scott. One of the first things I said yesterday, in fact, the first public thing I said yesterday was, good job, Scott. Now watch what he does here. Boom, he comes in, rushes in, and immediately, this is kind of where we started this, secures the gun and secures the guy. He's done both of those things. Now, is he a cop? Is he security? Is he martial arts? Is he some kind of like magic tactical ninja? I don't know. I just know that he did that about as perfectly as one could. We can get nitpicky here and say, well, he's not controlling the guy's finger. The guy could still be shooting if he wanted to be, if he was actually malicious. Okay, so what? The gun's pointed down range. It's going to have a malfunction probably after the first shot, if not very quickly thereafter. I'm not terribly worried about that. He's absolutely controlling the hand and the wrist. He's got his body right up against the guy, right? Is his gun exposed to this guy? Sure. He's open carrying. Hopefully he's got a gun with retention. But at this point, this is the threat. This is the guy who needs to control, and he's doing it really well. This hand up here for leverage, I really like what he's doing here. Everything's fine. And then he clearly, I think at this point, you start to see the body language of this guy. He's leaned in even more. He's saying, seriously, calm down, or whatever he's doing. His body language and what he's physically doing are all about controlling this guy and letting this guy understand how serious this situation is. The guy has now let go of the gun. Whoop, look up back here. Smart screen. Don't try to be smarter than me. The guy has let go of the gun. He's opened his hand. And I think his body language is now going to show us that he really is saying, hey man, the gun's not loaded. Chill out. Wrong, but more wrong than I think that guy knows. So he says that. He says, okay, let me check. He says, hey, just get out of the way. And as he checks here, now the RSO, again, we can get all tactical and say, oh, he's turning his back on him. I don't think there's any reason to think these guys were malicious, right? I think if they were trying to kill people in the range area, if this guy or this guy were, trying to take this guy's gun or do any of that would have played out completely differently. So range officer's still focused on what's really important here. He checks the gun and he says, oh, look, in fact, it is immediately, and this is where, there's some very kind of decisive, man of action stuff going on here, right? He says, oh, it's loaded, that's it, boom, let me escort you out, kind sir. Again, he's still got a hand on the guy for control. He's moving the guy out, and as he continues to move the guy out, he now grabs this guy, and he keeps a hand on both of them. And I think that's, again, that physical control. So are you, as an RSO or as an instructor, ready to physically control somebody? Really, really important. If you're not, maybe you shouldn't be in that role. If you are working in an environment where like the last thing you should ever do is touch a person, make sure that that asterisk, that exception, is very clearly articulated in your training, in your operations, in your policies, everywhere, but especially in your mindset. I have had to physically control people with firearms before for my safety, for other people's safety. It's not fun, it's not something I look forward to, but it is absolutely something that I prepare my instructors, people we certify, for the fact that this is very real. We don't get real handsy in terms of, move somebody's finger or move somebody's thumb or move somebody's body to learn a position. But will I walk down a line if somebody's still got an elbow bent that shouldn't be bent and give them a tap? Absolutely. That physical reinforcement is a very physical, athletic thing we're doing. And after all, in my world, in Personal Defense Network world, it is defensive shooting. It's a very physical, athletic activity. So hands-on, when appropriate, absolutely good to go. Now let me talk to you about the political side. So I'm going to change hats. I'm going to go into Second Amendment organization, executive vice president hat. If you go through a lot of these areas, right, people hate going to public ranges, right? I've seen a lot of stupid stuff. These two clowns need to be removed, they said from the gene pool. Should have let him shoot himself. What else we got here? Good thing he didn't slam his head. Never been to a range officer just hanging out. We've got here, I want to buy the range officer a drink. That's a good idea. One of the things we've got is, well, you can't fix that, right? Required safety course before you enter a public range, right? That's a good, that person's saying that's a good idea. As we go through all of these comments, right, what we're going to see here over and over again, you can look at them at Truth About Guns. You can look at them on my webpage at facebook.com/Rob Pincus or /Rob Pincus Pro. You can look at it kind of all over the internet. What you're going to see is that a lot of people have come to the decision that if someone isn't following these rules or whatever the set of rules may be, then they need to be removed from the range permanently. I've seen the word ban. I've seen a lot of people say people shouldn't, like this, shouldn't have guns. Well, let's think about that. As gun owners, as Second Amendment advocates, as people who believe in some version of shall not be infringed, right? If you're like me and you don't believe that it's a good idea to require training for firearms ownership, that it shouldn't be mandated because that would be a terrible infringement. If you're like me and you think, in fact, constitutional carry is a good idea and that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed as an individual right means that there shouldn't be mandatory training, but yet you look at something like this and you say, that guy shouldn't have a gun. If you say these guys shouldn't be allowed to own guns, if you say these guys should be banned from the range, I ask you, when are they going to learn? And how can you righteously tell someone who's an anti-gunner, the pro-gun control side, when they say, it doesn't make sense. You need a license to drive a car, you need a license to get married, you need a license to be a hairdresser. Why shouldn't you have to get training and be licensed before you can go to a range and have a gun? Why shouldn't you why should you be able to buy a gun and carry it around in the public space without mandatory training when you people me included, when gun owners say somebody in a situation like this absolutely should be banned, should be taken out, should be removed. How is it that we're saying that we are thinking that if you can't follow those rules at every moment, you shouldn't be allowed to have a gun, but at the same time, we're fighting against mandatory training. We're fighting for constitutional carry. I think that we need to be really, really careful about how we respond to a video like this. Maybe it just means re-examining your position, right? If you look at a video like that and you absolutely believe 100% that guy should not be allowed back on that public range, maybe you are in favor of mandatory training, and that's your opinion. Cool, we can debate that, we can argue that, we can have that discussion and dialogue, but please don't, on the one hand, say these guys should be banned from the range, and on the other hand, turn around and say, but there's no way training should be mandatory, because to me, that's got to be some cognitive dissonance there, right? There's a hypocrisy, there's a disingenuousness there if you're going to say, shall not be infringed and pound on the table, but at the same time say, ban these guys from the range. Let me tell you what I think should happen. Should they be removed from the range for the moment? Absolutely. Should they be, cleared of firearms for the moment? Absolutely. Should they be talked to? Absolutely. If this is a maturity issue and they're just not capable of keeping up, should they be banned from all firearms possession? Probably, right? If they're a danger to themselves or others to the point where we're going to say, no, you are not allowed on our safe space range, if you're not allowed to come into the world of gun owners, should they be banned? There you go. Let's talk about that. If they don't want to do it right, so if they're saying, you know what, I'm exercising my rights and I just don't want to follow your rules, there's nothing wrong with waving a loaded gun at myself or my buddy, well, now as a business owner, we should say, you know what, I sanction thee. You are no longer allowed to come onto my premises with a firearm. I'm going to serve you with trespassing if you do. You, I consider an irresponsible and reckless gun owner. And maybe we call them out. Maybe we talk about that in the local gun community and, post his picture up on the wall. You go into a convenience store, some guy's like, we don't accept checks from, Billy Bob Smith or whatever because he's had too many checks returned. That guy's poster should probably be up saying, hey, watch out. This guy has said he doesn't care about gun safety. He is going to act negligently and recklessly by the best practices, by the common standards of gun safety in our community. So that person is persona non grata. And we handle that inside our community. We police our own in that way, right? Ultimately, I think that the whole gun world can use this in a couple of ways. One, training hat. Range officers and instructors, you need to be ready to go hands-on if necessary. And shooters, you need to know that the instructor may go hands-on if you're doing something they deem recklessly negligent, right? Negligently reckless. Something that rises to an emergent level of, I need to control you, I need to control the gun. Sort of be prepared for that. The second thing then is the politics. Let's be careful about how quickly we respond to this if we're not ready to deal with the political ramifications of saying, sorry, you aren't smart enough, or you aren't safe enough, or you aren't well trained enough to own a gun. Well, I don't know what that means. To me, it clashes with shall not be infringed. It clashes with no mandatory training for gun ownership. It clashes with no mandatory training for CCW rights. So let's take these guys, let's calm them down, and if they have the maturity, if they have the intellect, and they're willing to learn, cool. I embrace that. I'm glad you wanted to take a selfie. I'm glad you're excited about shooting, but let's make sure you can do it without hurting yourself or others. We need to be encouraging responsibility and education inside of the firearms community, both from a training and political level.